Hey everyone, welcome to the Unhandled Exception podcast. I'm Dan Clark, and this is episode number 62. And today's episode is a little bit different. So instead of diving into a particular technology, we're going to be talking about mentoring. And not just any kind of mentoring, but speed mentoring, which is something I've recently been invited to join in with by our guest today, Maya Gordon. So welcome to the show, Maya.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. I've been quite looking forward to this because, the speed mentoring event was quite an interesting one. So I didn't really know what to expect when you emailed me to invite me through. And I really enjoyed the event. So I thought it'd be a really interesting episode to have.
No, yeah, definitely. I think I kind of got a feeling that it was a new world for a few of our mentors and mentees. Just kind of give you a background. I'm a career changer. So I used to work in events. I used to be an event manager. And I used to run speed mentoring sessions for female architects, and they were always so well received. But we used to just run the event over the lunch break, so really condensed event in central London. And then I was actually invited to join the DDD East Midlands committee by Jessica Brentnell, previously Jessica White. So I did a little bit of work on the actual conference, DDD East Midlands conference, which I know you attended. But we were also having conversations about any other things that we could add to that. So I suggested speed mentoring.
It was very, very interesting. I know with the DDD, I'm trying to remember I was just looking up then, but I didn't look in time what episode it was. But we had an episode about the DDD conferences. This was a couple of years ago, and I had quite a few people like Jess White. And Brentnell now was one of the guests, Pete Gallagher. We had a few different guests. So it was quite a good group episode about the DDD conferences. So it was great to actually... I've been to a few of the DDDs, but I've not been to the East Midlands one. And even though Jess has been on the show a couple of times, and we've spoken loads of times online, but this was the first time we've ever met in person. And it was great fun. So it was nice to come on the Friday night beforehand, and then after the speed mentoring, a bunch of us went out. And I think me and Pete Gallagher, as I say, has been on the show a few times. Maybe had a bit too much to drink, but it was good fun. So I was feeling a little bit rough during the actual conference. But I ended up doing a talk on Git, which was quite fun. But it was a really good event.
Oh, nice one. And like what you just said, I think it's so common to converse with people online for a long period of time and not meet them in person, or meet them in person years down the line. There's massive value to having these in-person events or opportunities. And that's definitely something that I was learning, because I came from a previous career where it was always about conversing, connecting, collaborating in person. It was very, very remote working wasn't really a thing until we had no choice, obviously, when we went into lockdown. So kind of getting myself familiar with this new kind of way of working, as my role is fully remote, I really missed in-person connections. Got a bit lonely.
I shouldn't really say this. This sounds really antisocial, but I actually love working from home. And I don't know, it's kind of I found that I'm so much more focused. Although saying that, Teams now pops up all the time, so Teams has taken over in-person interruptions. But I like working from home because I think it's just stuff I don't know, my kitchen's just there, so I can go anytime I want. I've got my own coffee machine. I don't have the commute, which I used to hate. And now the time I spend commuting, I can go to the gym before work every morning, and I've got that time back, so I can do things like that.
Yeah. I think it definitely has its pros, 100%. And I definitely agree with you on that, 100%. But I think, for me personally, I really value those opportunities I feed a lot of people's energy, and I really value just having in-person conversations with anyone and anybody, because I learn so much from them. And sometimes you miss that. And especially when you want to, so I work for the Ministry of Justice and I have an amazing team, but I kind of miss connecting with the wider tech community. So that's why I thought, actually, this speed mentoring event would be great, because it's not just beneficial to the mentees, because they're able to connect with industry professionals and get a lot of advice and wisdom and learn more about their journey. But actually, I think it's also quite valuable for the mentors as well, because they get to connect with peers, a bit like yourself. You're able to connect with people that you've probably maybe created new relationships with, or people that you already knew, but, connect in person. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, like one of the reasons I started the podcast is I just enjoy geeking out on technology and programming and our industry. And yeah, it was an excuse to just like sit down and do that. I'm trying to remember how long each of the speed mentoring sessions was. I can't remember. Was it 10 minutes or?
So there were 15 minutes. So how we ran it was there was kind of networking at the beginning, and then the actual sessions were 15 minutes, so short and snappy, focused sessions. And there was three of those. And we paired the mentees and mentors up prior to the event. Or we asked mentors to, when they filled out their form to register their interest, we asked them to also state their like specialist areas. And that's what was shared with the mentees. So most mentees had the opportunity to kind of select that top five mentors that they would like to pair with. And we used that to basically pair mentees up with mentors based on their preferences. Or we did have a few last minute registrations, so they didn't necessarily have the opportunity to kind of to select their top mentors, but we were still able to pair them based on what their area of focus was, what they were trying to gain from the event, and we used that to pair them up with the mentors. So yeah, 15 short and snappy sessions, really focused, really wanted the mentees to kind of to lead that conversation, because they should ideally have an idea of what they want to gain from their sessions. But at the same time, mentors were also there to kind of maybe warm up the conversation if need be. But yeah, really informal event, really informal. So yeah, I hope I hope you were able to have some really valuable conversations with the mentees that you were paired with.
Yeah, definitely. I think also, like you mentioned before, like you want both sides to get value out of it. But I think the key thing is that the mentees are getting the main value. So I think that was really good that
Yeah.
they kind of came in knowing they had a list of questions that they wanted to ask. And I found that that kind of like got the conversation going, but then it kind of like evolved and changed based on they would ask me questions. I think a lot of them were interested in the community aspect of things I do, like the podcast and .NET Oxford. And to be honest, that's one of my, like, because I know a lot of the mentees were students or just out of education. So a lot of, I think you even said in one of your emails beforehand that the general theme would be like career development. And I think in all three conversations, the question of AI came up and how like ChatGPT and how that might affect things. For me, one thing that's made a big difference to my career and also like just this AI question of like, are our jobs safe? I think networking is such a huge one because the whole phrase which people say, which is a lot of nonsense, is not what you know, it's who you know. It's both. It's kind of like you obviously need to know your stuff, but it's kind of the more people you know, the more opportunities are going to appear and everything. So I think that's a big part of it. Just like grow your network but yeah, it was interesting that all three conversations AI did come up. So that's obviously a concern that I was going to say new developers have, but it's probably all developers, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a really interesting. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think it's it's around for sure. And I think it's the majority of the attendees were students. It was definitely running the event was definitely a collaborative effort because I had the support of Claire Smith, who I know you know very well, is Microsoft Global Community Program Manager. So it was great having her on board because Claire comes with so much knowledge from, running similar events like this, and also just in terms of like preparing mentors for the event. So that was really valuable. And then we also had the support of Professor Beverly Cook, who's a principal lecturer in computing at Nottingham Trent University. So that was amazing because, again, Professor Beverly Cook offered us the space at NTU and arranged the catering and refreshments. That was amazing because we didn't have a budget for the event. And that's why we were also able to engage with the students. So the attendees were a mixture of students and other DDD East Midland ticket holders. And it was a great warm-up, I think, because the event took place the evening before the actual conference. So a lot of people were attending the conference, so that gave them an opportunity to continue the conversations, really, I suppose, from the evening before. So yeah, I think it flowed quite nicely.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned about the food. That was amazing because so it was pizzas and I'm actually allergic to white flour. I don't know how to do this. It's not gluten, but I can have wholemeal stuff. But I really wasn't expecting because wholemeal pizzas are quite hard to come by. I wasn't expecting to get there and have a dedicated wholemeal pizza. So that was incredible.
Yeah, and actually, I think Bev said that the university made all the pizzas, and it was the first time they'd made a wholemeal pizza. You're kind of the guinea pig. So I hope it went down well.
Yeah, it was very nice, very nice. It's weird though, because you'd think that home meal pizzas would. This is a complete tangent, isn't it? But you'd think home meal pizzas would be because people are into like health eating more nowadays. Like pizza places were doing home meal pizzas, but there's no pizza restaurants or anything seem to do it, and it's really odd.
Gosh, that is odd. There's a gap there. They're missing something there. They're missing a trick.
Yeah, let's start a business there.
Yeah.
We're going to pause the conversation just for a moment for a quick mention from our amazing sponsor, Track.js, who are helping support the show. We have lots of great tools to observe what happens in our backend services, but what about the client side? We've packed a lot of functionality into our web apps, and it's going to break sometimes. Track.js gives you fast and easy visibility into what's happening in your web applications, collecting errors and events with powerful heuristics and filtering rules to find issues that actually matter. So go check it out at trackjs.com. So with organising all this, were there any like big challenges that stood out?
Yeah, I think there were a few challenges. I think it took us a little bit longer to confirm our mentors. And that was a learning curve actually, because I think it was times when we actually started advertising for mentors. We did it over the summer break. And obviously that's when a lot of people are taking their holidays and things like that. It's a little bit quiet. So it took us a bit longer to secure our mentors. But once we started to build up momentum, they were coming in, thick and fast. So we had a great pool of mentors. I think with the another challenge with organising the event is that you get last minute changes. So you can be super, super organised, pair everybody up, but it's a free event at the end of the day. So there's no guarantee that everybody's going to turn up. So luckily, for our mentors, all of our mentors bar one turned up. One of our mentors was ill. So I didn't actually realise until I was calling, I didn't get through. And then we had a few mentees that had turned up late. So you have to make last minute changes and swap people around and things. So that can be a bit challenging, but I think you just try to have as many kind of contingency plans in place and have people to drop in last minute. I think I actually ended up sitting with one of the mentors, which actually was great for me as a junior developer. But yeah, so it can be a bit challenging in that respect. But yeah, I think the response from the mentors and the response from mentees was really good. It was amazing. But yeah, you just have to be prepared to do a bit of swapping around to kind of fill in any gaps on the day.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. Because I run .NET Oxford, I find like because as you say, it's a free event, so people will just drop out. Like we're currently organising a .NET 8 launch event, which is it's going to be quite a big event. It's still, I think we've got 125. That's the capacity. It's gone beyond that, so we need to like chase up because anyone on the waiting list can't. As in, if there's lots of people that have made it into the main RSVP and they don't turn up, that's someone on the waiting list that could have come.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just stuff like that, really. So it's just like judging that and judging like what percentage of no-shows will there be and allowing for that in the waiting list and the numbers and everything. So yeah, it's a bit of a funny one, but yeah, it always comes out in the wash, really.
Yeah, I think one thing I was always conscious about was that, we've got these amazing mentors that have given up their Friday evening to be here. So, I want to ensure that they have have a mentee to engage with in those sessions. I think it got to a point where maybe at the beginning of the event, one of our mentors, because of either late shows or dropouts, we had one mentor that actually only had what ended up having one mentee. So we had to quickly move people around because wouldn't be fair. So yeah, but I think all in all, we were really lucky actually. Most people turned up, and anyone that did turn up late, we were able to kind of move things around anyway. But yeah, I think it kind of comes with it being a free event. So we just had to be really hot on our communications and just reminding people that, this is, this is what we've done to prepare for the event. It's limited places. It's a free event. People are giving up their time. If you cannot make it, please let us know. But I think in all, we're really lucky with the turn up, with the attendance. And also, actually, holding it at NTU was great because if we did need to fill in any gaps with mentees, we had students that were like in the area that were more than willing to turn up. I think we actually had a few students that thought they'd registered but hadn't. And actually it worked out really well because we were able to slot them in to fill the spaces of some of the students that didn't turn up. So holding it at NTU was actually really, really a really good idea. It really helped.
I just got an image of you standing outside on the street of NTU shouting, "Anyone want to do mentoring sessions?"
You know what? I would have, I would have if I needed to. I honestly would have, but no. Luckily, I didn't get that far. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's funny. So you mentioned you got lots of great feedback and everything. Did the feedback include like what kind of? Because I would say that in my ones, the topic of AI came up quite a few times. Did you get any other feedback of what kind of topics ended up being discussed in the various sessions?
No, that's a good question. Actually, I didn't actually. Mainly, most of the feedback that I received was from Bev, and the feedback that she'd received from students, and they just were just. I think the biggest thing was that they just felt very motivated. They were like really kind of excited. I don't know whether it just ignited their passion and their interest and their journey. But that's a really good question. Something I haven't actually found out in terms of specific topics. I know it was just very heavily career growth led, and yeah, not sure about the specific topics. But I know that it's something that NTU are interested in maybe doing again, but just for students. But yeah.
I'm actually thinking because, as I say, I run .NET Oxford, a user group, and a lot of our events are just people doing talks. So it's kind of like it's a very one-way thing. Where actually us having an event, like a speed mentoring kind of event, not or maybe not even mentoring, just speed one-on-one, kind of where people are just like
Yeah, networking.
exactly, speed networking, and that'd be quite a fun event actually.
Definitely. I think there's always value in that. And actually, and then me and Claire were thinking, oh, maybe we might need to add some like icebreakers in just to warm people up and things like that. But actually, I don't think we even needed that. I think once people started talking, it flowed. And actually, what was really nice is that even after the speed mentoring sessions are done, mentees were kind of tracking down other mentors that they hadn't connected with or the mentors that they were paired with that they just wanted to continue the conversation with. So yeah, there's always value in in-person connection and conversation. You just learn so much.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a two-way thing. Like I think quite often, even like someone that's an experienced person talking with like a junior, people think in different ways. People like come at a problem. Someone might just think about it from a different angle. Someone that's way more experienced might be have concepts so ingrained in the head that they can't think any other way. Where someone that's new might be more flexible in the way they think and come up with a better solution. I think there's definitely value both ways in that kind of like two-way conversation.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And even just like learning from other people's journeys, whether it's, the highs and the lows, it's really, really valuable because once you realize actually you might have experienced a similar thing, you realize actually, I'm not on my own here. And then there's also the other side of just being inspired by just how people have got there and their journeys. I know for me, I'm consciously attending more tech events, mainly more focused towards like female-led tech events, women in tech events, but still, just the power of community is just, yeah, really powerful. It's really, really helps. It's a massive motivator and get a lot of inspiration from it. It's a bit like traveling. When you travel, it opens your eyes to like a bigger world out there. And I think it's kind of the same when you connect with people. You opens your eyes to so much more and to things that it's, even if you walk away with just one thing that you just didn't know, it could just be a word or something random. You've gained something from that.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay, so we're almost running out of time, but before we do dev tips, is there anything else we've not covered?
No, I think we've covered everything. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, we've covered a lot. It's something I definitely want to think about for .NET Oxford. Okay, so let's do dev tips. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, my dev tip is more based on kind of my journey so far and what I've learned as a career changer and as a junior developer. What I've learned is really the power of community and how that can really help you, not just as a professional, but also as a person, as an individual. So really kind of Over the last few months, I've been a lot more conscious of kind of, attending virtual workshops and joining tech community groups and engaging more with people, not just within my company, within my team, but also within the wider tech community. Got a lot of inspiration from other people, motivation, ideas. So I think, not being afraid, don't be afraid to reach out to people that are inspiring you. I use LinkedIn a lot. I find it to be a great platform. I kind of got into a routine where every morning that's where I'll start, and it kind of sets me up for the day. I even did something really random, and I, connected with somebody on LinkedIn that I'd followed, and we ended up having a virtual coffee chat, and then that led to me getting invited to a Women in Tech event that I went to last week. And it's just that person is now part of my community. We get a lot of energy from each other, and it's just great to just to connect with the wider tech community. I think there's a lot of power in that, and I think it really does support your journey. And it's also really, reassuring, especially when you meet people that are on a similar journey to yourself. And I think, as for me personally, I really value conversation. I love talking to people. I love speaking to people. It's just that I navigate that a little bit differently now as a developer and as somebody that works fully remote. I'm not always in spaces where I can just talk to people in person. I might have to, plan that ahead or consciously attend events or attend virtual events and whatnot. But I think it's really exciting. But yeah, I think there's massive advantages to really kind of building on your network, which I think we briefly mentioned or spoke about earlier. So yes, I really hope that the speed mentoring event has allowed, especially the mentees to build on that and to add to their community and really learn from their community and use that to build on the knowledge, their skill set, and help with their journey.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree with that more. I think you mentioned a bit earlier in the show that you were kind of like more of an extrovert and you get energy from this kind of thing. Where I think a lot of developers are probably more introverted, and I'm including myself in that. And when I started like .NET Oxford and this journey, it was a case of getting a little bit out of my comfort zone, and then that comfort zone grew. Then I got a little bit more out of my comfort zone, and then that grew again. So it's not going to be a no. If you are uncomfortable going to those kind of events, do like if you're very much an introvert, just do a little bit out of your comfort zone and give it time to grow. And even if it's many years, that growth, it's kind of an incremental thing. And I think that makes a really big difference. Because as I say, I'm an introvert and now I host a podcast and do talks and things. I remember the very first .NET Oxford where I got up on stage to do the intro talk. And I wasn't nervous beforehand, but then when people started arriving, I was like, I suddenly got terrified. Where now it's kind of like, I really enjoy it and I don't even think about it. So it's weird how just getting yourself out of that comfort zone makes a massive difference.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think, when I joined my team, that was a big learning for me because I had to adapt naturally because some of my team members are also introverts. They don't want to chat to the level that I would like to chat. And so you have to adapt to that accordingly, and that's absolutely fine. And I think as well, I spend a lot of time speaking to people that have gone on a similar journey to myself, so also career changes or maybe come from completely different industries where they were talking a lot like me. So, so I think for those people, they're the people that are a bit similar to me in that they need to fill that void in other ways by connecting more with people outside in the wider community. But yeah, of course, for those that are maybe more introverted, small steps. It's not about putting pressure on yourself either. Don't put pressure on yourself. You do what maybe naturally comes to you. But if it's something that you feel, oh, you know what, let me just take what you just said. Maybe speak to one person. Really just help because it also helps to build those soft skills. Because when you want to progress as a developer, we're here to support other people, support our team. We don't all work in isolation. We work very heavily with our team, and there's real value in being able to communicate with your team and work with your team, especially as you kind of build in experience and seniority. So it can only help you in your development.
I think that's it. And we mentioned about AI before, where that can do more of the technology kind of stuff. So the value of people to people interaction, that's going to be more and more important because the little bits of code, ChatGPT and things can do that kind of things, and we're going to see more and more of that. So things that computers can't do, it is that person-to-person interaction that's going to become so much more valuable and going to keep people in work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I think a lot of people would maybe felt the same way, but when we were locked down and we weren't able to have these in-person interactions with people for quite a long period of time, and then we were able to, for me, even as an extroverted person, it took a while for me to actually get comfortable with conversing and connecting with people in person because I hadn't done it for so long. So I can only imagine that for those that were maybe a bit more introverted, it was an even bigger thing. It was maybe even for some people even more challenging. So yeah, I think, yeah, definitely there's ChatGPT and these AI tools. They can't, not yet anyway, have those kind of in-person connections that as humans can.
Yeah, that's interesting. The not yet bit is
Yeah.
kind of. I would love to be able to take a peek in time, like 50 or 100 years in the future, and just see, because yeah, it's going to be quite interesting.
I know. Yeah, definitely. I do try not to think about it, but yeah, watch this space, I suppose.
Well, I would say embrace it. It's kind of like I do quite a bit of reading about the different AI innovations that are coming out all the time now, where the average person isn't. So just staying on top of it by knowing what tools you can leverage and how you can leverage AI now, that's going to keep you ahead of the game. Where a lot of people, maybe outside of their industry especially, have got no idea how to even begin to use it. I personally use ChatGPT all the time now, and like the DALL-E 3 I've started using for the image generation. I used to use Midjourney, and just leveraging these tools to actually get stuff done faster. I think it's quite powerful.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Probably something that I should probably invest more time in educating myself about, to be fair. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, definitely. I've paid for ChatGPT, and because version 4 is so much better than 3.5, because 3.5 just hallucinates all the time. So, and I think it's £15 a month or something, but I use it all the time. It makes that time back like within a day. So it's definitely worth it. So my dev tip is kind of staying with lines of motivation. And this isn't a plug for this podcast. This is any podcast I'm talking about. But I think we were talking offline before about a bit about my journey on podcasts and how for a very long time, way before I started this podcast, I've been an avid podcast listener and listening to the hosts and the guests, the passion they have from a motivational perspective over many years. That's what's given me the motivation. And the same applies to, as you say, if you go out and you go to user groups and all that kind of thing. I think just soaking in other people's passion over a long period of time really kind of like ignites your passion, which is kind of like why I'm so interested, why I started the user group, why I started the podcast. Lots of inspiration I've got from listening to podcasts for many, many years. So yeah, it's not a self plug for this podcast, but just listen to podcasts, lots and lots of them. I find they give me you don't really get really in-depth knowledge about a particular thing, but you get a breadth of knowledge about lots of different, say you listen to software development podcasts, you kind of learn about lots of different things, but at a shallow level. And then you can pick and choose, oh, that's really interesting. I want to deep dive on that. And also that if a problem comes up in a workplace, because you've heard about this broad range of things by just listening to podcasts and things, then you kind of almost know, oh, that thing I heard about a year ago on a podcast might be really good for this use case. And then you dig a bit more in. And people that just don't pay attention and they just go to work and learn what they need to do to get the job done. They've not heard of all these other things that could potentially make the job they're doing so much easier.
That's another really good tip as well, actually. Definitely. Because I've tried with podcasts, I have listened to a few, but I think what I've realized is that I need to change the way that I listen to podcasts because I have quite a short attention span. So I have to break it down. I have to listen to it in chunks. But yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of people talk about the value of podcasts. And yeah, I suppose also just finding the right time to listen to them, if you get what I'm saying.
Well, I think that's one of the benefits for me because I like looking at Pluralsight or watching YouTube videos to learn and stuff where it's got video on there as well. You've kind of actually got to sit down and watch it and not do anything else.
Mm.
Where with podcasts, I can be at the gym or I can be doing the dishes in the kitchen or making dinner or whatever it is. I can be doing other stuff while I'm listening. But yeah, I suffer from that a bit with the attention span. So I like being able to pause. I can pause at any time I want and then wait for my mind to stop wandering and then I can unpause again. And then I quite often find that, especially if the topic sparks internal dialogue and thoughts, then I kind of stop listening and start having almost like having joining in the conversation in my head with my own thoughts on it, but then I've stopped listening. So I've got to pause it, let my brain have the internal conversation about the topic, then unpause again.
Yeah, no, I do exactly the same. I do exactly the same. And I kind of wish sometimes when that happens, I wish I had like a notepad next to me so I could just write it down and then just focus back on what I was listening to. But it was so interesting when you just mentioned about the YouTube, because actually I'm learning how to learn. And I've definitely learned that I'm more of a visual learner. So I love YouTube because I love the visual aspect. Or even just like, and I get, as you know, we have to read documentation. We can't avoid it. But if I read documentation, I then have to draw a diagram. There has to be some kind of visual aid attached to it. But which might be one of the reasons why I don't listen to as many podcasts as I should, because I've just kind of relied on that visual aspect. But then saying that, I go to the gym. It could give me an excuse to go for a walk and listen to a podcast. So definitely ways that I could incorporate it into my learning and just ignite interest.
I do find I struggle a bit at the gym because I try and listen to them sometimes, but I find if I listen to energetic music while I'm at the gym, my
Yeah.
session is much better. So I'm kind of like in two minds. Do I need that energy while I'm at the gym? But I'm also like losing time where I could be learning. So I kind of play it by ear depending on whether I feel motivated anyway. If I'm not feeling motivated at the gym, then I kind of switch over to energetic music. If I'm motivated anyway and I'm in the mood for listening to podcasts, I do it. So I don't really have a hard and fast rule. But yeah. It's interesting you were saying about visual learning, actually. I've mentioned this on the podcast before as well, but a few years ago I learned about, have you heard of the term aphantasia?
No.
If you picture like a red triangle, can you actually see it in your mind's eye? Can you actually see the triangle, see the colour?
Yeah.
So I didn't know anyone could do that. So there's apparently about 5%, maybe less than that, of the population of something called aphantasia, where they can't see in the mind's eye. And I'm one of those people. And I had no idea that anyone could do that. And it's quite a common story that most people that have it have no idea that, like terms like if you're meditating, picture you're on a beach. I thought that was an expression. It's like
Okay.
people can't actually see that they're on a beach. And it seems like there's a wide spectrum. Some people have the opposite, which is like hyperphantasia. Some people have aphantasia where you can't see anything in your mind's eye. So you're basically blind in your mind's eye. And but yeah, it's just interesting how different minds work. But I can visualize things conceptually, so I'll get mental models for things. So I think my spatial awareness is very, very good, even though I can't see anything. So if I picture my mum's house, for example, I can just picture the whole layout, where things are and everything. But it's a mental model. I can't actually see anything. And it's just interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that is super interesting.
I'll be curious to know how many listeners are listening to that thinking, wait, people can see things in the mind's eye, because that's a common story. Something like this, they would hear about this. And people that do have it, so can't visualize, don't know that other people can until they hear something like this. So like maybe 4% of the listeners would be like right now thinking, wait, what? I've got a lot of used to it now. But when I first discovered it, it was kind of, blew my mind a bit, really.
Yeah, that is interesting. I've never heard of that before.
And there's different things, like some people can't, some people can smell mentally and internally, or hear things. Some people can't hear things. In fact, my internal monologue is me, where speaking with my mum, she was saying that if she thinks about, like, I think the example she gave was an Ed Sheeran song, she can actually hear Ed Sheeran singing it, which for me, that's really weird. It's kind of, I would get confused to what's reality and what's not if that was the case.
I feel like deja vu. I think so many times I've had deja vu, and I think, oh my gosh, this has happened before. But sometimes I'm like, has it happened before, or have I just visualized that before, or dreamt it before? This it's getting a bit deep now, but yeah.
I came to this because we're talking about learning visually, and it's kind of interesting because I would have thought that because I can't visualize internally, that I would need visuals to learn. Where actually, I've found that I can I'm quite good at having internal mental models, but it's kind of conceptual rather than visual. So I don't know whether that helps me or hinders me. I'm not sure. But yeah, everyone's so different, more so than we realize. Fundamentally, how the brain works and how people perceive things.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely, definitely. You realize that even more when this is kind of going off tangent, but it starts from birth, right? And which is why I think everyone's experience at school is so different, and the way the children learn is so different. That doesn't change. It continues right through. Yeah. But yeah, definitely an eye opener. Yeah, learning how to learn that works best for you.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And if any listeners are listening to this and have just learned that you've got aphantasia, do get in touch because I find this fascinating. So yeah, let me know if you've just learned this through listening to this podcast. Cool. So before we wrap up, where's the best place for listeners to reach out to you if they've got any questions? I know you mentioned LinkedIn, so I'm guessing you're going to say that.
LinkedIn is the best place. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Do you want me to give you my LinkedIn? Will we tagged?
I think I've already got it, so I'll put
Sweet.
that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And you also, like you mentioned before, you're new to Discord, but you're now on the podcast Discord channel, which for all our listeners, because I forgot to mention it at the start, which I normally do, but the podcast does have its own Discord community. And if you go to the podcast website, unhandledexceptionpodcast.com, there's a Discord link there, which is a growing community. And yeah, so yeah, it'd be good to see you on there.
Yeah, wicked.
Cool. So yeah, so a massive thank you for joining us on the show. It's been like a very fun geek out with lots of different tangents, but those are the best episodes, aren't they? I love those episodes where we just that's why I was saying to you before we started recording. It's kind of for the listeners' benefit, we tend to have like a Google Docs shared, so we can just dump ideas in. But I don't use it very often, and I always encourage not to have much in there because if that's too prescriptive, it kind of discourages organic conversation, and that's the best kind of conversation where we go on all these tangents and it's just a bit more interesting, I find.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you for inviting me. My first podcast ever. So thanks for inviting me, Dan. It's been great.
That's okay. And as I mentioned before, like offline, it's kind of some episodes are very hard to edit, but yeah, this will be quite an easy episode to edit because no ums and ahs. They've been a perfect guest, so thank you.
Wicked.
And thank you everyone else for listening. And a quick reminder that this podcast is sponsored by Everstack, which is my own company providing software development and consultation services. For more information, visit everstack.com. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please do help me spread the word on social media. I normally use the hashtag unhandledexception, and I can be found on Twitter @Drakan, and my DMs are open. And my blog, danclark.com, has links to all my social stuff too. And we'll include links to the things we've mentioned today in the show notes, which can be found on unhandledexceptionpodcast.com.